He'll tell you more. Please welcome Jameson.
Hi guys. So my name's Jameson, representing Voyage Control, and I wanted to kind of talk through a couple things with you today. First thing, actually, I really liked Lisa brought up this morning is she talked about the word disruptive or disruption, and I thought that was a really good one because a lot of the times when I see new companies going to antiquated industries, you're maybe trying to improve a process that's already being done, or maybe incremental things like that. But I really like the idea of disruption and taking something and just completely starting from scratch, or just trying to completely turn something over like that. So let's go right here. Voyage Control, we're working to build a global company to transform the industrial logistics supply chain. So we are a very global company, started in London with our founder. We moved over here to the US about 3 years ago now. I was actually the first US hire at the time, so I've got that on my resume, which is pretty cool. But we've now expanded into Australia, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific as well. So definitely very global and cross-industry as well. So I want to bring up 3 things about what makes our supply chain inefficient, and I think these definitely have all been said today, which is great. I'm glad we're on the same page about that. But the first one is something that I see every day when I'm working with my clients, and that's manual, outdated processes. I think multiple people have shown screenshots of paper, POs or whatever it might be, paper processes, right? Excel sheets, if you're savvy, it seems weird to say. But yeah, very outdated, antiquated processes. Fragmentation and siloed is another good word that someone brought up today too. People aren't communicating cross-industry, or even within the company, different groups in the company aren't communicating as well. And then also for readily available and reliable data, well, if it's on pieces of paper, that's really hard to audit at any kind of scale. And even in Excel, there's limitations there too. So these are the 3 kind of main components that we found that makes our supply chain inefficient. And so we have developed, we basically call an air traffic control system for trucks. This is a software platform, cloud-based software platform and mobile app. And what we've done is we've started at the hub. And I'll go into some examples of this in a minute. But basically, this is any kind of transportation hub where vehicles are going in and out of a congested, typically urban environment. And so what we made is a platform to reduce queues at hubs, improve operational efficiency at these hubs as well. If you don't have visibility into what's going on, you can't improve it and you can't optimize it. So we start at the hub. Currently, what we're doing basically is expanding our product and our offerings to kind of better fit the needs of our clients. And when you can start to build out the products more, you can get to have more data and be able to drive the accountability and the profitability for that business itself. The end status for us is comprehensive supply chain management across different industries and sectors, and creating sustainable systems for our clients. So we start with providing visibility and control. These are the 4 major industries we work in, and I'm just going to kind of walk through each of them. So top left, we've got convention centers. And this is actually where our business started. This was in London. We started working with the major convention center in downtown London, and they faced a massive issue with congestion at their site, with a lot of vehicles showing up at the same time, trying to get into the convention center, causing massive roadblocks that overflowed and had a big effect on London. And what these guys were trying to do was basically do some construction and get rid of a marshalling yard that they had on site, and they knew the congestion was going to get even worse. So basically the idea of being able to manage those inbound freight shipments to a convention center was where we first saw that first pain point for our clients. We then expanded to construction in the bottom left there, and that's what my role at Voyage Control is kind of the head of. And what we've been doing is working with a lot of general contractors on any major construction projects to, again, help minimize things like congestion and provide visibility into the operations and the freight movement from warehouses to the construction site. Ports and airports, we work on airport construction, and we work with maritime ports as well. So maritime ports have been discussed quite a bit today. We work at ports here in the US and in Canada, and we're managing freight inbound and out for them as well. And I'll go into more examples about that later. Final one is for retail and facilities management. So these are generally large shopping plazas again, with some of the same constraints around congestion. So once we have visibility, the next step is to drive accountability and profitability by using the data that we're getting from, in this case, Voyage Control. So we collect a lot of data with our platform. So you get some nice little pretty images there. But the bottom line here is that because you're collecting a lot of operational-based data, we can run either through our analytics or auxiliary reporting, run analytics and help you do, make better decision making. So for example, back to that convention center in London, they're doing construction, adding another $1 billion of work onto the convention center in adjacent space. So what we're able to do is use our cross-industry experience and understand how a convention center runs, what the operations look like, what the traffic in and out looks like, as well as how construction companies run and how they're going to be interacting, and making sure that construction happens in a way that's least disruptive to the local community, in a way that's operationally efficient, and kind of benefiting everyone in the party there. To create a sustainable supply chain, well, once you have the data and you can drive accountability and profitability, the next step is kind of creating sustainable processes. And by doing that, you can create, you can have proactive control of your operations. You can establish operationally and environmentally sustainable business practices. And so what we're getting at here is, especially around things like the environment, which I really like, that's been brought up a couple times as well so far. But if you can understand and minimize the impact of vehicles in the city, you can minimize their CO2 emissions and those kind of aspects, which we help as well. So I want to go through basically three examples, one for each of the, three of the four industries I just described previously. The first one is the Port of Los Angeles. And so this was a client we picked up about 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. And this is one of our maritime port clients here in North America. And what we're doing with USON Terminals, abbreviated YTI, what we do with YTI is basically manage the appointment systems for picking up all the containers from the port into and to the warehouses and such. So we're managing the congestion for all the vehicles going in and out of the port, the containers, the trucking community, or the active users on our platform. They're the ones that are picking up the containers and bringing it to wherever they might be going. And what we've helped YTI do in this case is minimize their turn times significantly. So prior to using us, they were, I think it was second or third worst for overall turn times. And a turn time, for anyone that doesn't know, is the amount of time it takes for a vehicle to basically enter the queue for the port to get the container and then exit back out. And so we help them drastically improve that turn time, which improves their operations. So kind of going back to what I said, getting data and visibility lets you improve your operations in that aspect. And because of the decreased turn times, you get increased cargo flow in and out of the terminal itself.
You improve turn time by reducing wait times.
In short, yeah. Yep. So the next example is convention centers. This is one in Toronto. Again, a similar concept to the one in London, where they were they're having concerns about their marshalling yard and having the vehicles overflow into surrounding community and blocking the streets of Toronto. This convention center is very much at the heart of Toronto, and if you're blocking the streets, you're going to get in big trouble and get the local community quite upset. So they first started using us in 2017 to solve some of these issues for Comic-Con, which is kind of cool. And they've been an active user, putting basically all of their shows, run through our platform, and they're managing all the inbound exhibitors to the site that are setting up their stands and managing that process. One component of this that's really important too is what we're replacing here is a process that would be done, via phone or via email or PDFs or whatever it might be. So instead of, maybe improving and making it, easier to use PDF or whatever it might be, we're instead completely gutting it and making an entirely new cloud-based software platform, which goes back to the idea of disruption. Final example I want to give, this is actually just down the road on 32nd Street. So this is the train hall, and I'm not sure if you guys took the train in from New Jersey or really any points west, but this is the Amtrak train station, and it's the LIRR train station, Penn Station. Not the prettiest place right now, but I can tell you it's going to look beautiful. I've seen it. I walk around there probably every couple months. So good news. Basically, we've been working with Skanska for a couple years on this, and these guys have, at this point, it's just over 5,000 or 6,000 deliveries have been going through our platform into their site over that span. So that is all the trucks that are going in and out of the site. The end platform is used by the subcontractors. Those are the mechanical, the electrical trades, people bringing drywall or these nice fancy windows that you're going to see up there. And so they're the end users that are basically bringing these material to the site. It's helping them improve the quality of what they're bringing to the site, the timeliness of the material arriving. It's helping them sync up their deliveries with the on-site resources, such as the tower cranes that you see sticking out of the towers currently, or internal material and hoist elevators as well. So it's making that entire process run smooth and improving the quality of the work that's being done there at the same time. Great. So that's pretty much the end of what I want to share with you guys today. Just kind of, again, thinking about how we're not just improving a process incrementally, making an Excel sheet have macros or whatever it might be. Instead, kind of disrupting it and taking this and bringing it to cloud-based software that's being used in that manner. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jameson. Do we have any questions? Yes, right here in the blue blazer.
I was just curious, what type of technology are you using to track the vehicles? Is it like a object recognition? Is it that?
Cell phones. Yep. So we do GPS tracking via cell phones and a mobile app. That's being used mostly with construction clients and in foreign markets. The U.S., we actually aren't really doing that anywhere. We're using it mostly in Australia and in the U.K. And again, it's mostly because of like government-based things. There's a lot of mandates in Australia that basically say that trucks arriving to and from a construction site, for example, have to be tracked so they know exactly what roads they're going on and that kind of thing. So good for safety and compliance mostly.
Kudos to you, Jameson. You basically took technology that's used to manage appointments and yards at warehouse locations and applied it to non-warehouses where nobody thought to bother doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well done.
Thank you. I can't take full credit. My CEO would love to hear that, though. I'll tell him.
Tell your CEO kudos.
All right.
Other questions?
Is it all freight, truck freight, or is it intermodal?
Yeah, it's all trucks at this point. Yeah. Yes. Short answer.
How does pricing work for this?
Yep. So we sell for construction clients, for example. We sell to the general contractor. So that was Skanska in that last example. For the maritime ports, we sell to the terminal operators, and then for exhibition centers, we're selling to the exhibition center itself. And generally, so for construction, for example, it's based on the size of the project. So that is a very massive project for Skanska. It's like $2 billion worth of work or close to that. So that's basically how we determine pricing in that manner. If you have a smaller project, or a smaller convention center, the pricing kind of scales, generally based on complexity. We don't put a cap on volume of users because ultimately you want as many people on the platform as possible, inputting data. We wouldn't want to say, hey, I only want half of the subcontractors going to Skanska's site to put their information here because then, well, you only have half of the data. You want all of it, right? So you go for the general contractor, the convention center, or the terminal. They pay for it, and you get as much data as you possibly can get in there in that manner. So, okay. He's next, though, because he's had his hand up a couple times. Sorry.
You mentioned that that the terminal, the NYK terminal, you reduced their time to their third worst. What were they before, and what are they sort of generally at now in terms of turnaround?
We have exact case studies I can share with you afterwards, or if you go to our website, you'll see the page for ports, and then there's a case study down there for you. I don't know the numbers exactly off my head, but it was great turnaround. I think it was somewhere like 25 to 30% like reduction in turn times after implementing this. Don't 100% quote me. It's roughly that, though.
So I was wondering, as cities go more to congestion pricing, I was wondering if cities would be an applicable market as well, right? Seattle's saying, gee, let's do congestion pricing. Well, all they know is it all goes in and nobody gets out, especially when the fish truck falls over and clogs
Yeah.
up everything. So I was just wondering if there was a growth market in cities themselves. If you're coming in, you get tracked because you're already getting tracked because you're getting told.
Yeah, that could be an interesting thing to do. We've seen several like smart cities initiatives and that kind of stuff. So I went to Columbus, Ohio, 2 years ago for an initiative like that, where they are very interested in, well, the data, and then also again things like congestion important too. So yeah, there could be a market to sell to cities. The example I gave about Australia earlier, that's a government mandated thing, and private companies have to oblige by this, but yeah, maybe there's an opportunity directly to cities or government authorities, something like that as well. So it could be interesting.
One last question?
Does your service offer, do you optimize the routes for your clients and, propose the best time or faster ways for cargo to move into, I think it's like a follow-up to her question about congestion. If cities like New York are trying to solve congestion and they've got RFPs out for that exact problem, could we use that Voyage Control to get the food in and out of the city quicker?
Yeah, so that's kind of two components that just come to mind. The first one is, yes, you could definitely, for like planning purposes, we space things out. So like one typical problem would be at a construction site is if you didn't tell people when to come, everyone would show up at 7 a.m., let's just say, because they want to get there at the beginning of the day so they can unload their stuff and just get going. Instead, what you're doing is you're putting a schedule that says, okay, you're at 7, you're at 9, you're at 11, right, and spacing it out. So again, you don't have that massive backlog. You can also do things like space things out so we're not hitting peak rush hour. So you could say, hey, I'm only taking 1 vehicle at a time during rush hour, but then when it's not rush hour, I'll take 5, those kind of things. But ultimately, getting back to what I've mentioned a lot, which is around data, there's a lot of like machine learning, AI capability here that when you look at a lot of the data that we have, you could really start to make some educational decisions on how and when you should be doing certain things, whether it's hosting an event at a convention center or constructing parts of a building. So there's definitely a lot of data and opportunities for machine learning there. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jameson. And now I believe I'm turning it over. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sapna. Mike, you're up.